Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Stencil Saturday video. This week I'm kind of continuing with the border ideas. This time I decided to mark, this is a row from my nested hexagon stencil. And it's called nested because the other ones slide up in here, so they're all, connected. And I did go ahead and do a little bit of stitching here, okay? Because I think one of the biggest things for people with stencils is that they, maybe you want to put this, let's say, in a border, but your border just is too big for this shape. It just doesn't fit. So one of the ways that I will go about kind of making it fit, and you can see what I did here is that I stitched a line. We're going to pretend that this outside line right here is how big this border was. And so I simply made like a little rail or a frame. So I would stitch in the ditch, the edge of the border, and then I stitched down a 1/2 inch in. Or, you could do any combination. You could do multiple line spacings just to know that it's going to get you so that your stencil will now fit in here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. There's, as always, there are just really unlimited options. You could have simply, maybe you put no lines coming in, but you stitch something, a fill around here, around the actual hexagons. Or maybe you add feathering in that goes up to the hexagons. That's entirely up to you. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is I just want to stitch using my straight ruler the actual shape, and I do it kind of like a figure 8. And yes, I mean there is some backtracking, but you can do it one of two ways. You can do it like a figure 8 where you would stitch up, over, and then I'm going to come down and then work my way back. Or you might choose to go up, over, you can go down and back, and that's just going to be purely personal preference. I just find it, well, and I guess I do both ways. It just kind of depends. So I'm just stitching to the point. I'm going to come over here. Down. And see, at this point, if you wanted to do that, you could go up and back, but I'm just going to continue doing it this way. Clamp is coming off. And then I'll work my way back across. And then I just want to be really careful that I'm stitching back on the same line. Okay, so I am going to go back kind of up here where I started. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work again with this new ruler because I have an idea. I'm thinking what I want to do is if you look at the hexagon, there are the 3 diamonds within a hexagon. And so I think what I want to do is, I'm not going to stitch this actual line right here. I'm going to pretend it's there and stitch 1/4 inch away from it so that I end up being right there. And I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 because I want to be able to move into this next one. So if I do an odd number, 1 pass would take me across. This puts a second one take me back to where I started, and a third one allows you to travel on. And we're going to do that the whole way across this border. So what I'm going to do is kind of scoot up until my hopping foot is touching the dot, I think. A little tiny bit more here. And then I'm just going to do lining up on these dots and my center line right here. I'm going to do 1. I'm going to scoot up and do another 1. Scoot up until my hopping foot is touching. And if you need to stop, you know, hit stop and get yourself lined up. That's fine. And I'm going to do 3. And then I'm just going to travel down here and right into this next one. So I'm kind of looking to see if my hopping foot is touching that. And I'm going to come over here and get lined up again. I think I went a little bit too far. So we're going to do 1. Travel. 2. Travel. And then our last line. And the nice thing too is that, you know, for me, it took me a while to realize, you know, because I really didn't start using rulers until probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And I was always trying to make sure I could see back here. But you can see, once you have a couple of lines in, you can see that you have this 1/4 inch line lined up on what you've already stitched. So you can stitch your 3rd line, and then we're ready to scoot right into this last one. Let's see. Yep. Get lined up here. And we're going to do 1. Travel up until your foot is touching. 2. What I find, if you so I'm mostly, and like right now I'm stitching on 14 stitches per inch, so I usually know that when I'm traveling up for the next line, that for me it's usually about 3 stitches. So it's nice if you kind of, if you start to pay attention to that and understand where, you know, without really having to look as much. Fix this thing here. Or not. No. Okay. Well, that's probably just as well because I can have my ruler there. So this time, now I'm going to fill in this diamond. I'm going to do the same thing. And again, we're going to do 1, 2, 3 so that we're ready to travel. So I'm going to line up this time. I'm able to line up the center line on this line. And I want to be on that. I'm going to stitch 1. Travel on the line. 2. Still lined up there. And 3. Now I'm going to travel over to this one. And we are going to line up again on there. We're on the dots. Good. This is not my favorite direction to quilt. I'm holding it there. 1. Line up. Probably went a little bit too far. 2. And 3. So at this point, because, you know, I'm really close up here, I'm just going to go right up there until I see my hopping foot is touching those dots. I went too far. Now we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to line up with that line. We're on the dots. That's how I know that I kind of had to back up just a bit. I'm gonna do 1. 2. Oh, those are lining up pretty darn good. And 3. And then I'm going to travel. Another option at this point, you may decide to add a fill in here. I'm planning to leave these open. But if you wanted to put a fill in here, instead of having to travel on these lines, you would have been able to drop down in kind of and do your fill to get over to here. And this time I'm down here. Going to travel up. Line up my line on there, on the dots. Too far. Whoop. Good grief. And now I'm ready. 1. 2. And 3. Okay, so we are going to travel up here. I'm going to do this one, lining up on this line right here, on the dots. And we'll do 1. 2. And 3. Travel over to this next and final one. That looks about right. Let me get this out of the way. Line it up on my line right here. And on the dots. This is the awkward one too. 1. 2. And our last line. And 3. Okay, so let me get rid of some of this. I know it's distracting when you try to look at it with all these markings on there. Okay, so now you can kind of see. I really like this because it, of course, is, you know, if you, let's say you had a wider border and you could do 2 rows of these, you would have the illusion that as this comes down, it would also then be in this next one. So you would kind of have layers. But either way, I think this is very cool. You get these whole new little diamonds made here. You could even come out here if you wanted to, and maybe you want to do, you know, you could put this right in here and do some there as well, would be another option. Or like I said before, you might choose to fill this as you go. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you next time.